The word karma is of Sanskrit origin and it means action. So action is Mars, as we all know. So Mars represents the karma. And the key thing to understand is that any action we perform has its consequence. And the consequences are represented in Saturn. So usually what we mean when we say karma, we mean Saturn. Saturn is a planet of karma. But actually the source of it is in Mars. So Mars is the one who creates karma in any chart, our action. So whatever we have in Saturn is just an old Mars. We can always see Saturn as an old Mars who created the reality in time, because as we know, Saturn represents time. That's the Lord of time. So we get all the consequences in time, depending on the action that we perform. Well, we can say that Saturn is a keeper of all of our timelines. Any timeline as a destiny that goes is created with the Mars. It's created by Mars in, some time ago, some life ago. So we are all born with specific position of Saturn and also Mars. But Saturn specifically in karmic astrology would be seen as a Mars. So we would always say, if we want to understand how we got these circumstances, how did we get that situation we find ourselves into by looking Saturn? So how? The answer is Mars. We just need to imagine that place where the Saturn is as the place where it was Mars in our previous life. So we always say that Saturn typically takes the story from previous life to this one. So this is like past life, it was Mars, nowadays Saturn. So then we continue with, we do react to certain consequences, to certain situations we find ourselves into. We have another reaction. So our new Mars create new consequences, and so on and so on. So in every life, we actually create our reality where we are. And Saturn is a Mars from a previous life. Unless Saturn is retrograde, which could mean not only previous life, but could say that certain action that we perform has been repeated already, like a few times. So in karmic astrology, we have specific rules to determine and how did we create certain karma. How did it came into our reality that we see now. But important thing about karma, there are two basic things of karma. One of those that is most typical, most known, is this karma represented by Mars or Saturn, as we say, Saturn as a consequence. But the other one is our karma of attachment. We believe in something. We believe that our reality is like this. This is how we experience. And at the end of every life, we always have a most important question: was it easy? And by giving the answer to that question, we define our attachment. Because unless it was totally easy, we have some kind of, so to say, objection. We are attached to something. That kind of attachment makes us, to come again to that thing, to that reality that we are attached to. And especially if that attachment was a negative one, if it was not very beautiful for us, and we are attached to still by refusing that, by trying to ignore all of that and all of this. So this thing is also our karma of attachment. So this is a different karma. We can say that we basically have two main karmic results. One is karma of attachment and the other is a karma of action. And the first one, karma of attachment, we stabilize through our mother. Actually, our mother represents reality of what we believe. We believe that life is like this, that life that we just lived was like that, like this. And this is not a mental believing. This is our soul's experience, how we experience that. So, depending on that, we get all the space, all the realities. But our actions that we performed, any action has its consequence, and depending on the action, no matter what was the reason of that, we just created some action. So depending on them, we got time. And time is stabilized through our father. So our mother and father are attracted by us. We are those who actually attracted them to create an airport for our new incarnation that we are going to. So we'll be always born in certain time, certain place. And everything that we will experience will come through these two realities. So one thing is, we could say, attachment and our feelings, and that kind of karma is coming from our 12th house. So our 12th house represents what we believe. Nowadays, this is our believing. It's deep psychological house of our belief system that we unconsciously project. Our 12th house is project to our first and second. Just as we can see, number 12, 1, 2, projects to 1, 2, first and the second house. So we get our own energy and all the system of our values that we materialize. So this is very important. It comes from what we believe. Our 12th house is the main projector of it. And after these two houses, the first and the second, we got our third house where we start thinking. But before we start thinking, we already have those two, realities, those two animal houses, first and the second. They are connected with the first two signs, Aries and Taurus. Like these two are like, primary houses that we create from our beliefs, from our 12th house. But that comes from the karma of attachment. The other karma that we may have, and each of us have some quality of it, is the Saturn karma. Saturn karma is karma of pendulum. We say pendulum, meaning in one life we perform one action, in the following life we get consequence. So if let's say we in one life, from some reason, we found ourselves to be aggressive to someone, let's say like that, we found the reason why it is, why it is so. So we found the reason to be aggressive. Okay, we become aggressive. Next life, we become the opposite. We become the one that's a victim. That's a victim of that aggression, but just because we did not understand the person to whom we perform that aggression, we just become that what we do not understand in order to understand. So by becoming something, we learn. This is the idea. It is not the punishment. The idea of that is the learning through experience. The best way we learn something, we evolve, is when we become that. So this is what is happening. Any action we create has an equal reaction. So we become now the other person. We become that. So in order to realize the life from that angle, from the angle of a victim in certain situation and all that. So now, being a victim, seeing the thing from that life, if we cannot understand our aggressor, if we cannot find a place for that person, if we hate that person, which very often happens, Next life, we are again aggressor. We again become the same as we were in the previous one, just because we need to understand that one. And then again and again. So that pendulum, exchanging the roles, is happening till our soul becomes mature enough to create a balance. And for balance between two people, only one person is needed. That's the thing, for any relationship we have, there is only one person that is needed to create a perfect relationship for both of them. But you can achieve that only if you are mature enough to realize that, to start living that, because we all have our opposites that we need to unite. Our mind and our body should be as one. And if we can perform that in the presence of anybody, anything, we start creating that balance. And out of sudden, everything in our life get that quality of balance. So we are neither aggressor, neither victim of it. We are just in balance. And that's a way how we actually change our enemies into our friends, and how we basically create a perfect action that does not create any consequences as karmic consequences, is called the Dharma. Dharma means perfect action that is guided by our purpose. So we are all born to do something which is very unique given to us. We are all the best in something. We need to find that talent and to perform that action. And once we do that, we have an action that does not create any consequences, negative consequences. It creates only dharmic influence that is actually here to build the structure for our higher self. So this is very important for our Saturn karma, for evolution of our Saturn. How to build our soul on a pillars of action that will just build a huge structure of our life, not only one life, but several lives that will be united as one, that would serve the greater purpose of us, the purpose of our higher self. So through Saturn, when we learn that, we know how to perform balanced action. That's why Saturn is exalted in Libra. So the best Saturn, the best outcome of any given karma, karmic influence, karmic consequences, if we can live our reality in balance, if we learn that balance, if we learn the secret of it, how to be very active, how to perform many actions, how to use Mars and still be in balance. So this is a different thing. So how to perform Aries and still be like Libra, huh? How to do that? So that is something that we learn through many lives. We learn that skill, and as we learn that, our reality around us, our circumstances change. So anything we see around ourselves is very changeable. It doesn't matter how it looks like it is very real. It is very changeable. And it all depends on that action that should be in balance. One more important thing regarding that is that Saturn in everyone's chart represents a timeline. That's a timeline. We have a timeline, things are happening, and that's, we can say we are predestined to something. It goes through Saturn. But timeline is at the same time completely changeable, just because in the field of all possibilities, we have infinite numbers of timelines. But we won't change that until we reach the source of every timeline. And the source of every timeline that is, defined by our Saturn The source of it is in Mars. So the source of every Saturn is in Mars. So how do we actually change that? How do we approach to it? First step is we accept Saturn. Never fight against that. Wherever the Saturn is, we take a rest. We go to peace. We make balance. And as we do that, we are approaching slowly to our cause, to our source of that timeline. And that source is an animal. We have that animal instinct in us. We have that animal cause that actually creates some action all the time. It is deep as a seed of all timelines. Once we learn how to approach our animal in a way that that snake is not scared of us, neither we are scared of the snake, so that we can come together and be as one, we can change the direction of what we have performed in some previous life, and that created consequences in this one. We can make a change of it. Once we change that, everything around us, everything around ourselves changes too. So, the way how to approach to our animal, how to be with that, how to make our animal to trust us, is a very special process. And we should learn how to do that. Everyone should learn that. We should actually develop that skill. If people have their own experiences in many lives, how to work with, how to deal with their own energies, this is something. But we also have techniques to learn how to approach to those energies. And from there, once we change something on a very deep level in ourselves, things are literally changing around ourselves. So this is the most important thing we can learn in one life in order to make our energies working for us. That energy is going to create a different timeline, meaning different series of consequences. Once it is performed on a very subtle level on our body, because that animal resides in a very subtle level of our own physiology. So, when I say physiology, I mean our mind that is responsible for materialization. Our body, our physiology is the most intelligent part of our mind that materializes our reality, that keeps all the memories. They're structured in our DNA code. And once we approach to that part, once we approach to that subtle level, yes, we change our past, and as a result, things around ourselves that do represent the past, they change. We call them future. We may call them future. We may call them even present. We call them anything we experience now. But those things changes, and we perform something very profound and very transformative in ourselves. And that's why it is very important to know how to work with that karma of Saturn by bringing it to a balance and